Welcome to From the Driver's Seat, the Averitt podcast for all Averitt drivers to keep up with news and information across our network. Make sure to subscribe on your preferred podcasting app to make sure you're notified as soon as every episode drops. And now, hosting from the driver's seat, Director of Driver Services, David Broyles.
Hey everybody, it's Dave Broyles. Hope everybody's doing great. It's great to be out in 2025 again. We've been out a couple times. We're going to be out on the road again coming up. It is first part of 2025, so it's very important that you get your uniforms ordered. And I know some of you saying, well, I don't really need any uniforms, and I'm good for the year. But hey, you get 20% discount if you order between now and March 31st. And that's 20% on $150. That's $30 about the way I count it. That's a lot of money on a uniform. You can get a lot of stuff. So take advantage of that discount. Get your uniforms ordered. And I know some of you don't have the catalogs yet. The catalogs hadn't come out. They're behind a little bit this year. But we're going to get the catalogs out, but you can still do everything online. You do not have to have the catalogs. If you need help, call somebody from Driver Services. They'll guide you in the right direction. They can help you with your order, whatever you need to do. But let's get the uniforms ordered before March 31st. You also got opportunities to win gift cards between now and March 31st. If you wait till after March 31st, you won't be eligible for any of those gift card giveaways either. So a couple of incentives there to get it done early. If you need help, let's do it, because it's really important that we look sharp out there. We set ourselves apart by looking like we look. It's part of our culture. We're proud of our uniforms, and we're proud to wear them, and we want to have everybody looking sharp when they're out there meeting our customers, because 2025 is going to be a huge year for us, and we need new customers. So the opportunity is out there. Make a good impression. Make sure you get your uniforms ordered. Okay, today's podcast, hey, I got a great guest, somebody that y'all have met over the years, and we've been doing podcasts for a long time. Jason Bolton. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing well. Good to be here.
All right, good to see you again.
Thank you.
You're glad to get to 2025, right?
Well, yes, absolutely. It's always good to start a new year.
It is, but I'll say one thing. 2025 has sure been a cold year. It's been cold and snowy, right?
Well, it started off a little challenging. I think we're working through that. I never would have thought we would be talking about snow in Mobile, Alabama, and places like that. But, it's a new year, new us. So we keep going.
Yeah, I know. I lived for a lot of years down in New Orleans, and they had 7 inches in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just unheard of down there, too. But that created a lot of challenges for our drivers. I think the snow coming in, and it was, it happened when drivers were already out on the road.
Sure.
And I think drivers got, we got a lot of questions about, hey, can I PC here, or how do I get from point A to point B? I run out of hours. The snow's caused issues, the ice. Let's talk a little bit about PC time and talk about when they need to be used, what they need to use.
Before we get to that, the big thing for me is to be informed drivers. Pay attention to what's around. Listen to the information that's out there, whether it be weather-related information. There's so much that's out there for drivers now that we didn't have years ago, so that can help them on the front end to be more informed, to know what they're getting into before they get there. But in regards to the hours of service regulations, it really comes down to the usage.
Right.
Personal conveyance is a personal trip, and that's really where you kind of have to simplify that. If it's something that you're doing for a personal use, you're at the yard and you're going to drive and go get a sandwich or something like that, that's PC because that's personal. What we're talking about here is an adverse condition. When you're driving in the snow and the sleet and all the things we're talking about, that's adverse conditions, and there's exemptions that are listed in the regulations that allow for that. So the key point with this is, one, it has to be a delay you couldn't have known about at the beginning of your trip. And if so, you can drive up to 2 extra hours on top of your drive time. So you don't have to use that PC time for that.
So let's say, here's an example that we get a lot of times, drivers in the snow. Of course, we know when the snow came across the south that every truck stop was packed to the brim. Drivers say, hey, I ran out of hours and it's in the snow and I got to this truck stop and it's full. I can't park here. How do I get to the next truck stop? That'd be adverse conditions still, right?
It
could be PC, right?
It could be if they have the time to do that, because you're only allowed up to 2 extra hours for that. But if you got into a situation where you're completely out of hours and there's nowhere to park, and that happens, then right, yes, you could use PC for that. With that, you've got to get to the next safest location for that. You just can't use it to keep going.
Right.
PC is actually another time it can be used, and this is actually listed in the regulations. It could be if you're at the customer and you're completely out of hours and it's a scenario that you've got to get off the yard, which we do deal with from time to time. So PC can be used for that. But really think about the usage. Think about where you're at in the relation to the situation you're in. and that will tell you what you need to use.
Okay. Driver's got a question. He doesn't understand it. What does he need to do?
He can call us anytime, or he or she can call us anytime. Our team is available 24/7, 365 days a year. One thing that I think folks don't do enough is they just call us and ask questions. And I get that, particularly in the middle of the night. But you can, if it comes down to the scenario that you don't know who else to call, give us a ring. We'll put it to our on-call safety coordinator, and we'd be glad to talk to you.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think if they reach out, sometimes somebody might know the answer that's already there in dispatch, or might know the answer.
Sure.
But if we need to, there's always somebody we can get the correct answer from.
That's correct.
And don't just take it on themselves to say, maybe I need to do it this way. That just creates some issues. But I think the other thing is always put a lot of notes in the hours of service when you're doing stuff, right?
Well, yes, and particularly to both of those we just talked about, because you have to think about how it looks downstream. You may know the situation you're in, but if your logs were ever audited at another time, whether it be roadside, they may not. We've had some unreal conditions down in Mobile, Alabama, just like we talked about. But let's say you're 7 days later, you're at a place that it's not a scenario. You're in Colorado or something like that. It's probably not the best example, and you're stopped roadside and they're going back and looking through trying to explain, hey, why did you go over here? Hey, you listed it on your logs. You made an annotation. Hey, snow covered highway, mile marker 117, whatever. And then that tells them that.
I think that's the key to it. I think give us some information, right? Tell us what's going on instead of just figuring out that, hey, we can look at the logs and figure out what happened.
Absolutely.
Put all those notes in. Makes everybody's job easier, right? Yeah, and it makes it easier for the driver in the long run.
It does. It does.
So I think that's important. I think there's a lot of that going on. So I appreciate that information. And, in truckload, for instance, now we've required all drivers to have hazmat. Of course, LTL drivers have hazmat. Some of the dedicated accounts have to have hazmat. Let's talk a little bit about hazmat and talk about what's going on.
Glad to. For one, handling hazardous materials is now our first quarter safety campaign. It's something we've been working towards for some time. Ironically, as a company, if you look across all our freight, we're under 5% as far as hazardous materials. And that may seem a little odd because certain business units, certain verticals will pull more than others, but across the company. But with that, it can cause the most havoc too at the same time, and we have an opportunity with that. So we believe that we need to do some more training on that. The training we were doing was meeting the federal regulation, but we felt wasn't enough. So we created another module that is really designed for drivers and leaders. The typical hazard materials training that everybody does it every 3 years. It covers what this is, but it goes into a lot of areas that, while good, is really a little bit lost on the annual basis. For example, it gets into the hazard materials table and things that a driver typically is not going to be looking at. They need to know, hey, what kind of placards do I need when I'm looking at this bill of lading? When can I take them off? What do I need for this situation? How do I handle this? And this training we've created goes right towards that. So that's going to be a new annual training that's just kicking off right now. We're going to do a whole focus campaign around this because what we want to do is we want to educate our folks. Not only drivers, but leaders as well, because it comes down to cargo securement, which is actually our number one violation in that regard.
Oh, really?
It is, even above placarding. So it tells me that there's something we need to work on. Now, certainly with the hazard materials endorsement, if you've never had a hazard materials endorsement before, you're getting into ELDT rules, the entry-level driver training, which we've been working with Truckload a lot on to make sure we get that. We've got a whole training designed for that we have to do for federal regulations. But it's been an opportunity. I think we're working towards this, and I think we can do better at it. And I know that we've got some really good people out there that maybe just need a little bit more of a better understanding of what these rules are, because it can be complicated.
And, I think it's good to focus on the rules that the driver has to do on a daily basis.
Yes.
Because that's really where we could have the most failure at too, right? It's not so much the front end stuff about the codes and all that, but it's about, did you placard it properly? Did you secure it properly? Did you stop and do the stuff that you're supposed to do in going with hazmat? That's just the daily task that a driver has to do. And, we get some pushback sometimes, drivers not wanting to get their hazmat because they think I don't know if they think it's going to be really dangerous or a lot of extra work, but it's really not a ton of extra work. It's just you need to be aware of it, right?
No. What the driver typically has to be responsible for is placarding. That's really the main thing, and our most common question that we'll get from a driver who'll call, hey, I've got this commodity, it's this much weight, Can I use a dangerous placard, whatever? And we get that from leaders too. So it's not just drivers in that regard. So it tells me that we can do more as a company. And so that's what we want to help them with. And consider, again, we're talking about the percentage is fairly low of what you would pull. But, and again, it's something that when it's not handled correctly, particularly the placarding, in placarding, our number one violation is either A, not having the right placard, or it blows off.
Right.
That's one we deal with. So, being able to, as a driver, understand, hey, I'm not placarded anymore. I need to take these completely off. Or maybe if I'm pulling an empty trailer, if there's placards on there, take them off.
Right.
It's the simple stuff.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I hear about that sometimes. That we pulled a trailer and left the hazmat stuff on an empty trailer. And that's not a good thing, right?
Well, it's a simple mistake. And yeah, I understand people get in a hurry or they forget. I understand that. But as a driver, we're responsible for that. So when you're hooking to that load, ensure that it has the right placards for the load you have.
Good.
And if you have any questions, this is where you can contact leadership. You can contact us. We're here to help with that.
Yeah. Well, hazmat's an important thing, and it does enable us to haul more freight. And,
Yes.
Of course, we don't haul the stuff that turns you green or anything like that. We don't have, hey, the real bad stuff on hazmat. It's the common stuff, Coke stuff and all that kind of stuff. Syrup is, hazmat. You know that as well as I do. You know more about it than I do, but most of the stuff we carry isn't really bad.
Yeah, think on that. I mean, a soda, it's a corrosive material, and a lot of us drink that. So, but that is the most common thing we're usually transporting.
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy, that paint thinner and stuff like that, paint. But, it's all about being safe. And I think, we've got great safety numbers over the years, I think, as far as crashes and accidents and everything. And a lot of that is training the driver, but a lot of it is the things that we put on that truck in the past 7-8 years, I guess, maybe 8 years, maybe something like that. Ever how long we've been putting the information on the truck. Talk a little bit about that. I know drivers get irritated sometimes about the noise. Hey, this thing squeaks at me over here if I'm trying to turn, but hey, you didn't have your blinker on, so it's supposed to squeak at you, But those things have really helped us as a company have less accidents, haven't they?
It's hard to put a number on how many they have prevented. Typically we don't get a driver that calls in and says, hey, I almost had this happen. It's not a common thing, but we know when we have this technology working, like a collision mitigation, we know that if we get an alert on that, had that not have gone off, we would have had a crash.
Yep.
Roll stability is one. Had we not got that alert, what that alert is that we almost went around a curve and we almost rolled over, and the technology prevented that from happening. And that alert tells us that would have been a crash. And so when you add all those things up, yes, our accident numbers are probably as good now as they ever have been. I'm really proud of our group. I'm proud of our drivers. We're doing a wonderful job with this. Something you've heard me say before, and I really mean this, we want to have the best equipment for the best drivers. And I think we do that. A statistic I read the other day, I think our average age of our equipment is 2.9 years.
Yep.
That's unheard of in our industry. And when you get newer equipment, obviously the newer stuff is coming out with new technology, and we have to understand how it works. When I was a driver years ago, we didn't have this. I remember when ABS came out, and that was a big thing.
Yeah, that was a big deal back then, wasn't it?
Nowadays, you've got to be informed. You've got to understand how this stuff works. And so what I challenge everybody is, number one, we've got a lot of training that's out there that we've designed for this, because you can't just hop in and go. You need to understand what the vehicle can do in certain conditions. More importantly, you need to know how to react to it in certain conditions. And so you need to do things like read the manual. There's a manual in every one of the trucks. I encourage everybody to read it. There's flyers we've put out to instruct people on how the safety technology works. We've done safety training because as drivers, we need to know how it's going to react and how we can also certainly override things. There are times that, it's a computer, it's reading a situation up ahead of you. One of the things we've had before is maybe that there's something that came over in front of you and caused a collision mitigation to bring your truck to a stop, which is a great thing. We don't want to have the collision. However, you've got to do certain things to override that, okay? So in that particular case, you've got to be able to step on the throttle as hard as you can to get it to go to the floor and go off. And that's in the case of a Freightliner. Volvo's are a little bit different. Volvo's, you can just take off as you will. But it's important to know that, because if you don't do those things, you may sit there a few moments, and that's not a good thing either. But read your manual, ask questions. If you get new technology in your tractor, this beep is going off, I don't know what this is doing this, ask somebody. That's what we're here for. Our maintenance team is here for that. Our team is here for that. Just be informed.
Or if you think it's going off when it shouldn't go off, ask maintenance, take a look at it, right? If you really think there's an issue, if you're driving that truck and you think there's an issue with forward mitigation, whatever the system is, the side view, whatever.
Correct.
It's, hey, this isn't working right. Let maintenance look at it. It may be an alignment issue.
If it's misaligned, it will give you false readings, and that's where our maintenance team needs to step in and calibrate that. And that's something we can simply do. But the point is, don't let that go.
Right.
And the other one is, if it's not doing what it needs to do, then when we need it to do that, it may not.
Right.
And so we need to address that to make sure it's working correctly, because it's designed. You prevent accidents with safe driving. That's what it is.
Right.
This is designed to kick in when a set of circumstances have came out that have added to that. So this is designed to prevent accidents. It can only work if we're allowing it to do so.
I think if we go back and look at our accident history since we've started installing this, there's no doubt, the high-speed rear collisions are way down, rollovers, side swipes, all that stuff that it can prevent. It is preventing, right?
Absolutely. The rollovers
numbers won't lie.
Correct. We used to have more opportunities years ago. One that has really helped with that is roll stability.
Yep.
Again, I mentioned that earlier. It is designed it won't prevent everything. It's getting better every time we get new equipment. I think it gets a little bit better. We're not autonomous. That's something that I don't know if you and I will see, okay? But it is getting smarter. Well, I tend to agree with you with that. But it's getting smarter, and it's designed to prevent accidents. But we had rollovers years ago before we got that. And now, again, it's not that we can't have them, but it's severely, severely limited.
The rollovers, all those things, everything that truck does, it controls a lot of the truck. But again, it comes back to the driver has to be alert first, right?
Absolutely.
Well, so you can't get sleepy. You can't let yourself get into a fatigue position because it may not protect you, right?
Well, fatigue is something that is always going to be something that affects us as drivers. It affects me as a leader in the office. We get tired. You get tired.
Yeah.
The difference with the driver is when you're driving a commercial motor vehicle and you're in traffic and you're going down the highway, that's not the time to be fatigued, and it will play against you. And sometimes it's very subtle.
Right.
We deal with scenarios, we call them micro sleeps, where you might think you're okay, but you're really not, to put it plainly. And drivers have to be able to react to that. The thing that I'll tell everybody is, if you're tired, stop, deal with it. Let leadership know, hey, this is what's going on. I can't go any further.
Yep.
Be aware of the hours of service. Take the time when you're on your break to get rest. Whether you're in your tractor or your home, get the rest you need. You can be legal hours of service, but still be unsafe.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you take care of that.
I think the real thing, I think you mentioned that's really important, is to let leadership know.
Absolutely.
If you've got, obviously, if somebody's sleepy, they need to pull over. Micro sleep or whatever. It doesn't take just 10 seconds to have an accident and be in trouble. So, but let leadership know. You got to tell somebody. If you're pulling over because you're tired, make sure you tell somebody, right? Sure. That's the first key to everything. Leadership's not going to push you and say, oh, no, you got to run the load no matter what. That's not going to happen. We don't do that, right?
That's not in our culture. Never has been. And I'm proud, and I know you are as well, to say that. We just have to know when those subtle signs are coming up and take care of that. Right. We can replace equipment. Yep. I can replace freight. I can't replace you.
No.
And if you're putting yourself in this situation, you're risking your life, not only for you, but the people around you and ultimately your loved ones. They want you to come home safely. Right. So do what you can to help with that.
Right. Now, I know everybody's pushing right now. Sometimes the snow and ice is holding everybody up to get home.
Right.
It's not worth an accident to try to push yourself to get home. Sure. If you need to sleep on Friday night, just do it. Do the right thing, right?
Right.
I think that's a key. One other thing I want to talk a little bit about, the drivers have been brought up a time or two, is speed. And, I know we have the trucks governed, but talk a little bit about what you all look at with speed when we're looking at how fast the driver's driving and what we get notifications on.
Ultimately, we tell everyone to drive the speed limit.
Right.
Okay. That's the numero uno thing you can do. The trucks, though, will roll. It's something that's just inherently part of a commercial motor vehicle. When you have enough weight, when you have a long enough grade, and they will push you past that. And as a driver, you have to take that under control. Now, there's a point that we get a trigger that lets us know that that's happening. And I will tell everybody, it's in our handbook, 75 miles an hour. Once we hit that, we know about it, and we're going to react to that. And so that's something that you need to keep it underneath that. And I think drivers do a really good job at this. I think a lot of times it slips up on them, and we'll pull video on it, and we'll handle that a little bit differently. But what we're talking about is keep it under control, watch your speed, use your exhaust brake. That is something, too, that is a tool. But be aware of your speed. Don't rely on the cruise control to hold you back. Don't rely on the exhaust brake to always do that. Be in control of your speed. Use your speedometer to tell you that, and use control braking when you need to.
I think that's really important,
Yes.
and that part's just so important to control your speed, especially, people, you're driving at night and you're down there and there's nobody on the road and driving by yourself and you listen to your favorite music.
Sure.
And you're going down the road. It's easy to get,
It is.
not think about it, but that's something you really, I think using exhaust brakes, obviously a good way to do it.
And make sure it's set properly.
Right.
That's something that there are settings within that. You can take that to maintenance to make sure that's set at the appropriate point to kick in when it should be. There's different stages to that. Make sure you're using the right stage for the right situation. If you're going down a really steep grade, you're probably going to want a little bit more exhaust braking than something just driving down the highway.
That's a good point. So all that stuff's great. I think it's things that'll help us. It'll help the company, helps our profit sharing, right? Everything, all that stuff ties back to, hey, we're making more profit. We get more profit sharing. Everybody benefits at the end of the year when the profit sharing comes in. And it's really accidents are very important. And not only loss of life, but it's loss of equipment and loss of money and everything. So, a small accident, some people think that's not a big deal, but it is. And, I still see where people don't call in stuff that they should call in, and they end up losing their job because they didn't call an accident in because, they just didn't think about it. But,
right.
Most of the time, most of the stuff when it's a small accident, I think that, and they fail to call it in, they would have survived if they just called it in.
That's true.
I mean, as far as survive not having to get terminated because of points.
I have said before, and I'll say it again, you're better to over-report than under-report. And if you think you've had a collision, whatever, minor, and this is in our policy, no matter minor, what I don't want the driver to do is make the decision, it's not that bad.
Right.
It may not be to you, but it may be to the car you hit, and they'll call us.
Yep.
So that's not a position we want to put you in. Just call us on the phone. We'll work through that.
Right. All right. Well, but Jason, great information. Wonderful to be out in 2025.
Yes, it is.
We'll see you out there with us, I'm sure, some places when we're out this year going
Yes, we will.
to different places. So appreciate you. Anything else you want to leave with the drivers?
Just appreciate what everybody does. We're doing a great job. Everybody does a great job. Just one thing from me to everyone, watch distracted driving. That is something that comes up from time to time. We've seen some things come across in roadside inspections. I think everybody thinks I have this hands-free device that I'm okay. But that's not necessarily the case. Hands-free means truly hands-free. You're not enacting with it in any way. Along with that, too, and this seems kind of odd to say, but watch your social media. I ran across something the other day, and I have to mention it, where I think the driver had the best intentions. You're driving in the snow, you're driving in this beautiful, and you want to tell somebody about it. So the temptation is to post it online, and that's not what you need to be doing. So, just be aware of that. And if you have questions on that, certainly give us a call. But we have a good team out there. They do wonderful work. We love every one of you. We thank you for what you do. And if we can help you in any way, just give us a call.
Well, I appreciate it, Jason. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. And we appreciate everybody out there. And, we've talked a lot today about keeping you safe. And so that you get home on Friday nights or whatever, if you're at home daily, whatever, but you get home to your families. And that's what it's all about. And, we hire good people. We want to keep good people. And part of that is our safety organization. How well do we do at that? And how do we get people back home to their loved ones every night or every week? So that's really important to us. And we hire good people. That's part of what we're looking forward to going forward. If you know somebody out there, if you're at a truck stop and you see somebody out there and you think, wow, that person would be a great Averitt person, go over and introduce yourself, talk to them about coming to work for Averitt. The People Like You program's a great program, but we need you to do it. 2025 is going to be a big year for us. We're going to have a great year, so we need more people. So the People Like You program is going to be vital this year. So please get involved with People Like You, and we'll see you out on the road. Thank you all so much.